Hey everybody, Oli here with the weekly news recap, the 24th through the 30th of June 2024. So we're gonna get started. We're kind of coming to the end of Summer Game Fest, so a lot of the big news has already been out, and then those studios are gonna be pretty much going silent for the next while. So we don't have too much to talk about this week, but we're gonna start with a game called Alcahest. So this is from a Cyprus-based developer formerly have worked on a bunch of other AAA games, a couple of people from the Witcher team, a couple of people from the Kingdom Come Deliverance team, and so on. I just wanted to show this trailer because it is, for people who were not around during the PS3 360 era of E3, when studios would put out trailers for games that didn't exist yet, that had no development done on it at all, and were just sort of like showing, hey, this is what it could look like, and they were absolute bullshit. You're looking at a modern one. This trailer is, yeah, it looks incredible. There's no way the game plays like this in any way at all whatsoever. Debatable if they do have actually any development work done on it either. But anyway, I just thought it was a great example of what were used to be called bull shots, which were like screenshots that were bullshit, so bull shots. And then that ended up being trailers that were bullshit. And they didn't come up with a fancy word for that, so they still just called them bull shots. Anyway, yeah, it's super impressive for a game that definitely does not exist. Anyway, well, eventually we'll figure out, like, this is no way this is actual gameplay. Anyway, if there's ever actual gameplay, we'll come back to this, but for now, just treat it as a, yep, it's a mighty fine video you've just created there. And that's about it. That's about all you've got going for you. Anyway, that's Alcahest. Other announcements, Capcom randomly decided that Dead Rising needs a remaster, so that's going to be happening soon. So Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, so they could say DRDR. Out this year at some point, probably closer to Christmas. Capcom are going to have a Capcom Showcase thing next week, 1st of July, Tuesday, I think. And the Dead Rising remaster will be at that, and a couple of other games, probably Monster Hunter Wilds, and then I don't know what the third game would be. Oh, I do. It'll be the Kunitsugami thing, the Path of the Goddess. I almost certainly said that name wrong, but that game, I'd say that those will be the three games that they'll be talking about at it. Anyway, so yeah, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. It's already had a HD remaster. This is an even further remaster of the game. Anyway, we'll learn more about what the deal with that is on Tuesday. And then, again, also another random announcement. Star Wars Bounty Hunter, all the way back from 2004, I think, is when it came out initially. So Star Wars Bounty Hunter... No, earlier than that. It would have been way earlier than that. It was a PS2 game. Anyway, Aspyr Media, the people who've been doing a bunch of Star Wars ports for the different games. They did the Jedi Knight games, they did the Knights of the Old Republic games, ports over to PC and for modern consoles and what have you. So they're doing the same deal with Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's following the tale of Jango Fett, not Boba Fett. It's kind of set before Attack of the Clones, so before he's chosen as the base for the clone troopers for Star Wars. He has to do a bunch of shit, I guess, to prove his worth or something like that. I don't know. I never played it, so I haven't a breeze. But anyway, it's out soon, 1st of August. I haven't played it, but I always wanted to play it. Is what I meant to say. Anyway, Disney Epic Mickey also is getting a release, or has its release date announced, 24th of September for that one. So I missed out on this because it was a Wii exclusive, and I really did want to play it, mostly because of this guy, Warren Spector, creative director. He's the guy behind Deus Ex, and is one of the people who started the whole immersive sim thing. And while Disney Epic Mickey is definitely not an immersive sim, he is a good game creative director. So, well, sorry, he makes good games. Whether he's actually a good director or not, debatable. His games do tend to go very long in the weeds on development times and what have you. Anyway, most of this trailer is behind the scenes stuff, and it's about the collector's edition and what have you. But Disney Epic Mickey, think of it as like a It's nearly like a 3D Mario, kind of, but you have this artist paintbrush mechanic that lets you draw new platforms or delete platforms and stuff like that. That was kind of its gimmick. Anyway, that'll be out middle of September. And then another shock surprise announcement. The original PC version of Resident Evil is now available on GOG. Up until now, getting Resident Evil to run on PC had been a huge pain in the balls. So now they actually have it redone, and it's compatible with modern versions of Windows and so on. So the original 1996 PC release of Resident Evil is now available over on GOG, and Resident Evil 2 and 3 Nemesis are coming soon. We don't have an actual release date for it, but they'll be there eventually. The big deal is that obviously it's now, it'll run fine. No issues. You don't have to do any of the bullshit required to get any of these games running on PC. If you're trying to get it run on Steam, you still have to go through the bullshit, but at least GOG it'll work fine. That's pretty good. And I kind of wish they had this before I started doing the Resident Evil series, Fully Plays Resident Evil, because getting Resi 2 and 3 running on the Steam Deck was a bit of an ordeal. So hopefully these 2 games... Well, the 3 games, we know Resident Evil 1 is already out, but hopefully 2 and Nemesis will be out before we come back around to those games. Because I am planning to do a revisit of all of them. Because we have done a regular canonical playthrough, play it from the beginning, fresh, no upgrades, nothing like that. And then when we revisit it, we'll do the fun playthrough, which is when you have everything unlocked and can just wipe the floor with everything in the game. It's fun. And you have the fun costumes and all that stuff. All right, anyway, moving on. Free Epic Games Store game this week is Sunless Skies, which is the sequel / follow-up to Sunless Seas. The same kind of game. Sail the Stars, Betray Your Queen, Murder a Son. Sunless Skies is a gothic horror roleplay game with a focus on exploration and exquisite storytelling. I can certainly say about the exquisite storytelling at Sunless Seas. It's a bit of a survival sim kind of thing. But it does have RPG sensibilities to it. You're putting points into different things. You're making different decisions. The story changes because of that. Good game. Good game. Sunless Skies, I have no doubt, is similarly a very good game. Anyway, moving on. We're coming into the start of a month, so PlayStation Plus is getting refreshed, and Xbox Game Pass will similarly as well, but I don't have the information for that one yet. So PlayStation Plus monthly games this week this month is kind of not great. So Borderlands 3 is obviously the main standout. Then a hockey game and Among Us, which is already free to play on a bunch of other platforms. So I don't get it. But anyway, Borderlands 3 I think is kind of considered one of the more disappointing Borderlands. I mean, it's still Borderlands. You still know what you're getting. It's first-person shooter looter thing. You still and comedic sensibilities and what have you. I think a lot of the writing team for Borderlands 2 weren't there for Borderlands 3, so it feels like it's not quite as good. I'm basing this off hearsay. I have never played the game myself, so I don't know. Played Borderlands 2. I liked it. Didn't like it enough to play Borderlands 3, though. But anyway. I'm also pretty sure it was in the PlayStation Plus catalog at some point. So maybe it's not there anymore, or maybe it was just Borderlands 2. Anyway. NHL 24 is the hockey game from last year. Chances are, if you were into hockey, you'll probably already have it. And Among Us, as I mentioned, Among Us, the big COVID, werewolf game, effectively, is free to play on pretty much everything. So I don't know why you would care that it's now free on PlayStation Plus. Because I don't think it's free on PlayStation for some reason. Because we would definitely need PlayStation Plus to play it anyway. Because you need an online subscription for it. And then there's a Genshin Impact Pass. Again, I know you guys don't particularly care about Genshin Impact, but I like Genshin Impact. Out of this pack that you get, the only actual useful thing is the Primo Gems. And even at that, that's not a lot. It's enough to do one pull for a character, I think. Which effectively means nothing. you need to do loads before you'll actually get a character out of it. That's the way the lottery works. Anyway, moving on. Those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something right now? Well, you can play Until Then, which is a game set in Manila, You are playing this guy, and you have your friend. You're going about your day with, regular life sim kind of stuff. But then some, shenanigans transpire. There's some supernatural elements to it. I'm kind of being very vague about the story because it is a very story-heavy game, so I don't want to go too much into it. But it's really gorgeous pixel art. It's got a really interesting narrative element to it. It reminds me a lot of the game. I've been racking my brain trying to think of the title of it, but it came out earlier this year. It's another pixel art life sim thing between a boy and a girl. The girl has supernatural powers. It's set in school. I think this one happens to be set in the Philippines, but it is very similar. This version of the game, I think, goes more, they're leaning into what life is like as a child in Manila around the 80s or so. 80s, 90s. And the other game I'm thinking of, it starts with A. It's a something, and I think it's like 4 words, but I cannot for the life of me think about what it is. It couldn't be the 80s and 90s. It must be modern day then. But there's a mobile phone there, so it's definitely not the 80s and 90s. Okay, anyway. Right. That's Until Then. We have Riven. So Riven was the sequel to Myst. So Myst was one of the very first point-and-click adventure PC games. It was incredibly how to describe Myst. Confusing, I guess, is the word. It was not very obvious how to interact with the game. Everything was done in either still images or video. What was and what wasn't interactable wasn't always clear. What the goal of the game wasn't always particularly clear, and so on. Riven was the sequel to it, which was kind of similar. They made it a little bit easier to figure out what was going on, but not much. It was still pretty obscure what's going on in the game. Anyway, Riven is the remake of that. This Riven. It's still kind of leaning into confusing the player more than anything else. What's kind of interesting is a lot of point-and-click adventure games kind of rely on you building up this inventory of weird items that you're just mashing into different things to see if they work and see if they do anything. Riven, a lot of the puzzles are just done in screen. Like, there's very little of you carrying items around with you. There's a lot more of you just looking at something and going, hey, that looks like this other thing over there. Maybe it's related to the puzzle or something like that. I'm just trying to keep that in your head. Or take a screenshot, I suppose that works too. Obviously, it looks very nice. It's very pretty. There is a VR version of the game that I am quite looking forward to playing, actually. I played a demo of it on the Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck was like, no, I don't like this. I'm gonna explode soon. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hopefully, it's not indicative of how the game ran. I've seen a couple of people play this streaming it. It seems fine. The Steam Deck just was not able for it at all. Anyway, moving on. We have a couple of remakes / remasters. So Luigi's Mansion 2 is a remaster of Luigi's Mansion 2 from the DS, or the 3DS rather. So it's still the same kind of setup for Luigi's Mansion. You go to an abandoned house / hotel / something. There are ghosts. You need to catch them. Luigi's a scaredy cat. Comedy. But yeah, it's a Nintendo game. You know it's going to be, at the very least, going to be good, if not amazing. Luigi's Mansion 2 chosen as a remaster over Luigi's Mansion, the original. Not sure why. I think it's generally considered to be the better game. And Luigi's Mansion 3 obviously is far too new to require a remaster at this point, or a remake. But yeah, it's ghost busting with Luigi. It's not really a platform game. It's got a lot more puzzle elements to it. But it's a good time. If you never did play it, I would recommend. If Luigi's Mansion 3 is too expensive for you, because Nintendo refuses to do discounts. Anyway, it's Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And then finally, we mentioned it in the Weekly News Recap last week. Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition was announced and then is coming out like less than a week later. So it is now available for purchase if you want to check it out. It is €20, $20, £20. 20 equivalent currency? No, probably not. Whatever your equivalent currency for that is, do the conversion yourself. Anyway, As you can see in the bottom of the screen, I have also been adding Beyond Good and Evil to our upcoming Let's Plays, because I really liked Beyond Good and Evil when I played it originally. It's a very good game. I've been trying to get it running on a Steam Deck or on my Potato PC so I could stream it for you guys as well, but I've been unsuccessful, so having this version of it makes things way, way easier for me. So yes, look forward to me playing through this at some point. Or play it yourself, it's a good game. Do that, actually. And then watch me stream it. Or the other way around, whatever. Just play the game. Anyway, fortunately though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. And I'm not the only person who feels that way, because it turns out 59% of developers feel the same way. No, I skipped ahead. It's the wrong story. I'll get to that in a minute. Before we get to that, Perfect World cut staff in multi-unit layoffs, reportedly suspending game projects. So Perfect World, you may not be familiar with too much because they're mostly a China-based developer and distributor. So I say distributor rather than publisher. So they are partnered with Valve and I think Riot. I don't know who develops Dota, publishes Dota. I think it's Riot. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're both Valve. Anyway, they are the partner in China for distributing Counter-Strike and Dota 2. For those who don't know, in the video game industry, and a lot of industries in general, but if you want to deal, if you want to trade in China, you either have to partner with a Chinese company that is already present in the area, or set up your own independent company in China if you want to do work there. So that's why a lot of companies partner up. Activision does the same thing with... It's not Tencent. Forget the name of it, but there's a lot of Western companies do this. They'll partner up with a company that already exists there. So it's kind of questionable here, because you would think Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, they probably make a lot of money, right? Anyway, but apparently not, because they're laying off over 1,000 staff. Reductions have hit nearly all of the company's business units. Pretty much the only division not affected was the esports division, which apparently makes them some money. Not a lot, but it makes them a little money. It's probably not surprising with Dota and Counter-Strike being some of their games. Why were they laid off? The reason given is profits are down, or revenue is down. No, net profit. Yeah, so profits are down. They're not making enough money. They're making money. They're just not making enough money. So 64 percentile decline from the previous year, which is probably, you know, it's significant, but you're still making money, right? All of your costs are accounted for. It's net profit they're talking about. So this is after they've paid everybody, paid their bills, and so on. Net profit. Made $67.5 million in net profit. Layoffs. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, it's unclear what this means for the studio's actual in-house development stuff. They do One Punch Man. I think they have also an MMO called Perfect World or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. You're making a net profit of fucking $67 million, and that's not enough. Anyway. Bethesda Montreal files for unionization, so they're going to come under the CWA, which is a lot of the video game unions have been coming under. This is the Communication Workers Association, or something like that. Communications Workers of America. I don't know how Bethesda Montreal are coming under that union, but whatever. Just don't ask questions, I guess. They filed for certification. Having a seat at the table will ensure job security as well as improve transparency, accountability, flexibility, and more. We aim to make sure everyone receives fair compensation for their work and value they provide. I never checked audio. Okay, it's alright, it's fine. The mic is working. That would have been really fucking annoying, because I got pretty far on this before actually checking it. Anyway, this will be interesting, because this is the first union being sought for, seeking certification post the Microsoft acquisition. Because before that, ZeniMax America, were they already under Microsoft at that point? I don't think so. I don't think they were. I think Microsoft came in while they were going through the unionization efforts and basically said, we'll leave you alone. I may be confusing that with Activision. I'm not sure. Microsoft have a labor neutrality agreement with the CWA, which basically means they won't try to bust up the union. They are legally required to not do that. See if they'll stick to it. All right, now the story that I thought was going to be number one was first on the list, but turns out it wasn't first on the list. Anyway, 59% of devs say industry in bad straits. Blame investors and mismanagement. Yeah, this is big shock on that one, right? Over 600 game developers were surveyed by the Game Developers Collective. In May of this year, 59% of them collectively minced no words. The industry is in a bad spot. Those surveyed were asked about the present market conditions for the industry overall. Market conditions, basically, what the fuck? Everyone's getting fucking laid off, basically. 38% and 21% combined were respectively at bad or very bad. 26% were neutral, and only 13% found it actually good. So probably in management. Kind of a breakdown here. So, causes of poor market conditions. Most developers blame poor market conditions in the games industry on internal factors, with unreasonable investor expectations and mismanagement considered the leading factors. Remember our unreasonable investor expectations? Just even going back to the Perfect World thing, they had a net revenue of 67.5 million, and that wasn't enough. So 1,000 people had to be laid off. That's unreasonable expectations. You know, it's like sales not making expectations. Again, we've said before, Square Enix are probably the worst for this, but all of the companies are at it. It's not making all of the money. Every single person who owns a PlayStation did not buy the game, therefore it did not meet expectations. And mismanagement we've seen time and time again. This is executives getting in the way of actual development process or making creative decisions. People who are not creatives making creative decisions. And followed by development costs. Development costs, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot on this one. Because they're chasing the high fidelity thing. They're chasing the no asset reuse thing. You gave yourself this rope to hang yourself with. Like, if you weren't going all in on making everything so high fidelity, you wouldn't be in this position. Go for artistic style over fidelity every time. Too much competition from other games came in way under the 20. But anyway, the first three are way out in front, and unreasonable expectations and mismanagement are considerably the forerunners for that kind of thing. Both have previously been cited as causes for closures and layoffs over the past few years. Again, unreasonable expectations is we're not making enough money. We're making money, enough to cover our costs. It's all net profit, but it's not enough net profit, so you need to be fired. Anyway. This is performance versus sales plan. So this is how the game did, or how they feel the game will do versus what the actual sales expectations are. And as you can see, they are way, way off. Studios are almost 4 times more likely to be tracking below than above a plan for the current quarter. How is your studio doing in regards to meeting its sales plan revenue objectives for the current quarter? We're below expectations, apparently. Way below. 48% are below it. And then for the next quarter, again, most of them are seeming that they're going to be below it again. This is probably more optimistic to think that they'll break even. But yeah, coming just from the game developers themselves, not management, not executives, not whatever. Significant portion, a majority of the game developers think it's bad. Bad or very bad. And significantly fewer think it is good. Anyway. Sony Bend Studio seemingly fed up with Days Gone 2 Discourse. So this keeps coming back. There's going to be a Days Gone 2. It's going to be a trilogy. Sony will, come to their senses any day now. And it's just, no. Won't. Stop asking. You'll know when we know, basically. A lot of this came from a former creative director on the game. Basically, he just keeps tweeting about it. That, yeah, hey Sony, you should do a Days Gone 2. Oh, if we had a Days Gone 2, I had the script already, and etc., etc. And you're getting fans of the original game commenting to Bend Studio, like, why aren't you making Days Gone 2? Are you making Days Gone 2? You should make Days Gone 2, and so on. For the community manager to come back and go, look, my guys, could you fuck off talking about this? We have no power to make this happen. The guy tweeting about it doesn't work on the team anymore. He doesn't even work for Bend Studio anymore. Just move on. You'll know when we know. it's the same as is pointed out here by PlayStation Lifestyles Zarmina Khan. It's the same. Bloodborne just keeps coming up, and they keep talking to Miyazaki about it, and him just going, "I don't own the rights to Bloodborne. I can't do anything about it. Talk to Sony." It's the same here. Talk to Sony proper if you want Days Gone 2. Stop bringing it up with Bend Studio, and maybe for this creative director who doesn't work on the project anymore, to let it go. You don't work there anymore. You need to move on to something else and stop stoking the fire for this, because you're making work at the company difficult. Moving on. Game preservation, another hit to it. Forza Horizon 4 will be delisted later this year. So it's being delisted from the Microsoft Store and Steam at the end of this year, December 15th. Games DLC is already gone, so if you wanted to buy it and hadn't done it up until this point, you can't now unless you decide to buy the Ultimate Edition of the game. And the usual, if you have it in your library already, you'll still have access to it. And if you want to get it right now, it is currently available 80% off on Steam. But why is it being delisted in the first place? Well, it is the perennial issue with video games licensing. Licensing agreements have lapsed. More than likely, the game in-game music, or possibly like car brands or something like that. And I always have to come back to this. And I really, I've been meaning to investigate why this is the case, but why is it that TV shows and films that have product placement or brand stuff or licensed music or whatever the case may be, why is it that they are never pulled from distribution for licensing agreements? You know? Like, there's some TV shows that have licensed music as their intro music. And they're still there. Like, they're still on streaming services. They're still on TV, syndication. Films are still sold, their DVDs and so on. Why is it digital versions of the film as well? Like, why is it that they're okay to be sold? Like, their licenses must lapse every now and then, right? And yet they're still allowed to sell the film. Are we meant to believe that they're still paying the license agreements all the time? For films from like the 80s or 90s? Earlier? 70s? Are we meant to believe that current day executives are actually paying those licenses? I doubt it. So there must be some agreement with TV and film that exempts them from this issue, because video games, it seems to happen all the time. License expires, game not being sold anymore. I'd love to know. I would love to know what the issue is there. Anyway. iOS ports of Resident Evil 4, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and Death Stranding sold poorly, estimates suggest. So this is kind of something you really should have already known, which is that people who play games on their phones or on their tablets are not interested in the big AAA stuff. They want to play stuff that's made for the phone or the tablet. And even more specifically for these games, because they're only available to be played on very high-end iPhones or iPad devices, which means you've already shrunk the audience. But more importantly than that, if they have the money for a high-end iPhone or a high-end iPad, chances are, and they're interested in playing these games, chances are they already have a pretty decent PC or a console that can play it already, and a much better version of it for cheaper. So anyway, so how badly did they do? Fewer than 3,000 people went on to buy the full game of Assassin's Creed Mirage after playing the trial. So a reminder, the games are like almost full price on the App Store. So it's like $50 for Assassin's Creed Mirage, the app version of it. Like, the regular game is only a tenner more expensive on console or PC, and it goes on sale fairly regularly. How often does it go on sale on the App Store? No idea. And obviously Apple are taking a 30% chunk out of that as well. Similar estimates have been made for Resident Evil 4, which may be about 7,000. Death Stranding was about 10,000. So this is coming from mobilegamer.biz, pointing out that these are estimates. Like, they could be more. AppMagic's estimates are a little bit more. But even so, they're still very, very low. Like, incredibly low. For these kind of games, Resident Evil, Death Stranding, Assassin's Creed, like, they would be making a lot more than that, you would think, but no. So this is coming from Andrei Zubov, who's head of AppMagic, or head of content for AppMagic, kind of pointing like why did they sell so poorly? Other than $49.99 for a fucking app, but okay, why did they sell so poorly? Basically, top performing mobile premium games tend to be games that are made specifically for the mobile space. Independent titles that have simpler controls, prioritize unique art styles, and so on, so on, so on. Shorter playtime sessions. Again, something you would be okay playing on your phone. You know, for like a couple of minutes. Not something you're going to sit there all day playing on your phone, which you might do with Death Stranding. The standout one, of course, is players who can afford a flagship mobile device required for playing these games. $50 for games are likely to already have the resources to enjoy games on PC and console as well. So the takeaway of this for Capcom, for Ubisoft, for Kojima Productions, for Sony, whoever it is, if you want to get into the mobile games, make mobile games. Don't try to port your AAA game over to mobile, because you're just... How much money do you think was spent on developing these? You know, that's a lot of assets, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of salaries that have to be paid, and they keep complaining that that's their big cost when they have to do cost cutting, right? Maybe stop doing that. Maybe make a mobile game if you want to make a mobile game. Anyway. Finish up with some community things. So, Stardew Valley has a hardcore mode now thanks to a silly joke, but it's no laughing matter. Okay, so this is coming from a Hard Drive article. So if you're not familiar, Hard Drive are a satirical news website, but focus mostly on video games. So think The Onion, but video games. Effectively that. And they put out an article that was basically hardcore mode for Stardew Valley is your farm gets deleted if you open the game's official wiki. Which is pretty good. You're going to be opening that thing almost all the time. So that's pretty good. But then somebody just went ahead and made it as an actual mod. So there's a mod now if you really want to play Stardew Valley on hardcore mode. If you have a browser window open that has the wiki on it, it will delete your game immediately. Or delete the save, right? It doesn't delete the game. That's just pretty funny. And the turnaround for that was very quick. It's like a couple of days. Like, I saw the tweet from Hard Drive, read the article, funny article, came back a couple of days later, hey, I made this mod. I was like, okay, nuts. It's pretty funny. And hopefully Hard Drive don't leverage their new power to make mods happen. Because they have some very hilarious ideas, but also I definitely would not want to play those games. Anyway, we will leave until then to play in the background. Anyway, that's your video game news. Weekly news recap for 24th of June to 30th of June 2024. As I said, Summer Game Fest has come to an end. A lot of the big news is already out there now. There were a couple of showcases this week. Gamescom is happening in Latin America at the moment. Nothing particularly new came out of it. A lot of it we had already seen. And there was an Upload VR showcase, which was very disappointing. Really nothing to get excited about there for VR, and it does seem like a lot of developers are moving to mixed reality. It's pretty disappointing, because mixed reality is boring. They're just mini games. I'm not interested in getting into that, but that seems to be the way the industry is going to entice people into it. It does help with the motion sickness, the queasiness that people do feel in VR if they can see the real world at the same time, aka mixed reality. It does help with that considerably. Helps you orient yourself a little bit better, but the video game experiences you get in mixed reality just aren't interesting to me. They're very boring and very basic. So yeah, it's got a little bit disappointing, but I get why they're going that direction. Anyway, PlayStation Plus refresh this month. Pretty shit. Honestly, it's not great. I mean, if you hadn't played Borderlands 3 and somehow haven't gotten it on sale when it has been there, it's like been a $5 in some places. I guess that's something for you, but like a hockey game that you almost certainly already have if you're into hockey, and Among Us is free in so many other places. I don't know why you would specifically buy it on PlayStation. Like, you buy it on PlayStation for, I think there's some cost, there's like PlayStation costumes or something like that, but otherwise, you're effectively buying a costume pack. So yes, you get a free costume pack for Among Us. Anyway, still don't know why you would bother. New game releases, we have Until Then, which looks interesting. I still can't think of the game that it's reminding me of that came out earlier this year. It's really annoying me. Like a Star something, maybe? Can't think of it. And then a couple of remakes and remasters. The Riven one looks interesting. I do want to play it in VR, just have to figure out the setup for it. And I don't think it's on PlayStation yet. I don't think it's on PSVR 2 yet. Could be wrong about that. Luigi's Mansion 2, I've never played, but I did really like Luigi's Mansion 3. And the streams I've seen of Luigi's Mansion 2 looks like it's a lot of fun. Was you to get Beyond Good and Evil? Yes, that will be on the channel at some point soon. The Dead Rising remaster. Again, we'll learn more about that in Capcom's upcoming showcase, so kind of hold off any kind of judgment about that until we've heard more, but a little bit questionable. Because there already is a remaster of Dead Rising and it works fine on all platforms. So it is another case of Capcom double dipping on things, and Capcom do that. They do like to do that. There are a lot of it. How many times have I bought Resident Evil 4 at this point? Anyway. Games industry news, I mean, it's almost 60% of game developers that were surveyed think games industry is in either a bad or a very bad state. I mean, is it shocking? No. It's surprising it's not higher than that, to be honest. That might just be a question of who was surveyed. It's only 600. It's a significant enough number of people, but it's probably not significant enough to do like an across-the-board thing. This is more of like a vibe check, I guess, for game developers. But the two things pointed out most: investor expectations and mismanagement in terms of like how many layoffs and how many behind-the-scenes exposés have we seen on development teams and what have you that are just this, that are just money guys want money and are annoyed they don't get all the money, and instead of thinking about why they want all the money and maybe going to the therapist about greed, they just fire people who had nothing to do with it. Anyway, what's going on the channel? Well, I didn't prepare ahead of time for this bit, so give me a sec while I get up our game card. Okay, so again, this is the game roadmap, the big wall of games for 2024. I haven't added anything, but the lock is removed from Beyond Good and Evil because the game is out now, so we can move on. We'll be playing that at some point. Resident Evil 5 we started this week, and Still Wakes the Deep we started this week. So Still Wakes the Deep is from the Chinese Room. It is a first-person horror walking sim, so think something like Amnesia, because they did actually make one of the Amnesias. They made Amnesia 2, A Machine for Pigs. That was them. And they've also done Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is not a horror game. It's just very unsettling kind of game. What we played of Still Wakes the Deep, I think we're a tiny bit less than halfway through it. It's been really interesting. It does have a bit of the cat and mouse horror stealth stuff, you know. You gotta hide in the locker until the guy walks by you kind of stuff. It's like, that I don't like, but it hasn't been too bad. The sections it pops up in have been kind of scripted in a way that is, you know exactly what you need to do to get past them. It's not a case of trial and error that I think kills a lot of the momentum of those kind of games. Games like Outlast, games like Amnesia, you know, where it's a lot of trial and error stealth stuff. Kills your progress, kills the vibe, kills the horror aspect to it, to me as well. It's like, oh, I died again, did I? Fuck's sake. You know, I think it works a little bit better when... It works better when it is almost a scripted thing, you know. It's not quite scripted, you do have to actually do something, but when it's just a case of you're only dying once or twice, you're not dying like 12 times going, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Why is this stealth so hard? And so on. Anyway, I've been enjoying it. Still ways to do. Resident Evil 5 I have played before. I've played all the Resident Evils. There's nothing new here to me. Resident Evil 5 is probably the one I know the best. Yeah, it's been fun to go back to it. It's also been kind of interesting to note how often I have parts that are like, oh no, not this part, and still I quite like Resident Evil 5. Like there's the bit we've gone through, like the opening section of the game. When you play it for the very first time, is actually kind of hard. You know, it's almost like a siege at the beginning. You're in a very small room. It's just you. It's Chris and Sheva, against a big horde of enemies. So it's a lot like the cabin section of Resident Evil 4, except it's at the beginning of the game where you don't have any of your resources. You have one gun. It's just the handgun. It can be quite stressful. And then on top of that, they break the wall at one point, and then you have to like rush out. And now you're being kind of hounded around this very small area, constantly on the move, constantly shooting. It can be quite overwhelming if you, again, are just sort of just getting used to the controls. Now, luckily, I played the game enough that I know what I'm doing. I know which enemies to prioritize. I know where to shoot them, and so on. So it wasn't too bad. There's the chainsaw guy who's later on in that. There's the boss that's in between those two as well, which is kind of interesting. I did forget the gimmick for him, or it's not true. I remember the gimmick, I just did it wrong, basically. And the chainsaw guy, of course, the ceremonial. You have to get killed by the chainsaw guy at some point. It has to happen. Anyway, we are not far in Resident Evil 5, but it is fun and enjoyment. Enjoyment is being had by all. Final Fantasy V as well. I did come back to it on Friday. Feels like we're at the halfway point for it now. We're at a pretty big story moment where I don't want to spoil it for people, but there's a big story moment. We're about to change locations, we'll say. It's a very significant thing. So we'll be getting back to that this week. Off stream, I've been playing a lot of V Rising. So as I said in Fully Plays Games a Bit, Fully Plays V Rising a bit, I wasn't sure if I was really getting into it, you know? It still felt a bit rough. Not rough. There was still some friction, you know? There was still a bit of getting used to the controls. There's still a bit of, you know, what am I actually supposed to be doing in the game? It felt like I was out of the tutorial, but I was still sort of in a tutorial kind of thing. But we're past that now. I am into it. You know, I have like this big castle, and it's got all the rooms in it, and it's got like decorations, and I've got all the different stations laid out. You know, I got leatherworking in one section, I got a forge in another one, I got jewel crafting over there. It's like, yeah, I get it. I'm into it now. What's a little frustrating at the moment is a lot of the enemies and the bosses, sub-bosses, what have you, feel like they're tuned for more than one player. So they're a little tough. I am struggling a little bit with some of those enemies. And the option to kind of power level past them isn't really there because they're kind of gatekeeping it. It's like defeating them will get me the blueprints and materials to make the thing that would have power leveled me past them, you know? So they're tuned for people to help you, basically. It should be 2 or 3 of you fighting these guys, and you're just doing it by yourself. It's hard. You can make it happen, and I have made it happen, but it's difficult. It's like it's a couple of tries against these guys, and trying to very much not get hit at all. Or because healing yourself in V Rising is not really something you can do quickly. No, it's something that has to be done slowly. I won't go into the exact mechanics of it, but there's not like you can't just take a potion and you're healed like that. It doesn't work that way. It takes time to heal yourself up. Anyway, schedule for this week. Let me just open that. Control 0 doesn't do anything. Control O does something, Eric. Schedule. So the schedule is pretty much the same as it was last week. So we'll have Final Fantasy V Tuesday and Friday, Resident Evil 5 Thursday and Saturday, and Still Wasted Deep on Wednesday for Foley Fables. And then we'll have, obviously, the weekly news recap that you're watching right now on Sundays. One of these might not happen. Weekly news recap will definitely happen. It always does. It's one of the other days I might be playing D&D. It's not entirely ironed out yet. Not ironclad. But anyway, keep an eye on Twitter, keep an eye on the Discord, and you'll see. I will make it an announcement. Anyway, that will be it though from me for today. Thanks for keeping me company. I'll be back on Tuesday with Final Fantasy V. But for now, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye bye.